أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا والشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض روحي وأرواحنا الفداء ولعن الله أعداءهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The topic of our discussion tonight or today will be living in a culture of instant gratification. Before we actually dive into the topic, it's important for us to understand a couple of basic realities of what's happening right now in the world. We know that we are some water please, I'm sorry. We know that we are living in a time where we are waiting for our Imam. And we know that in the Quran there is a promise of a divine government that will be established on this earth. أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يُرِيثُهَا عِبَادِيُ الصَّالِحُونَ, the Quran says. Thank you. That surely this earth will be inherited by the Abdul Salih, the righteous servants. The Mufassirin, those who do tafsir of the Quran, tell us that this ayat refers to Imam Zaman and nobody else. This, right now, the way the world is and the way the world is moving, it's not going to end like this. It's impossible that God's system will allow the human race to reach such a low level where you see it today. But one area that is extremely important for all of us to understand is that this promise of Allah's divine government on this earth is not jabri, it's ikhtiyari. What I mean by that is that it's not something He's going to force upon us. It's something that we're going to choose on our own and establish with our own efforts. If it was a case where Allah would force this issue of creating this government, then Ghadir would have been accepted by everybody. Saqifa would not have happened. The day of Ashura would not have happened. Our Imam wouldn't be in Ghaibat today. And this continuous system of guidance from the Prophet through Imam Ali all the way down would have continued. But the reality is that that didn't happen. Ghadir happened, and 70 days after Ghadir happened, the Prophet left this world, and Saqifa happened. And then the Ummah was broken into pieces. So there is going to be and has to be effort done on our part to establish this government on earth. Any social reform, if you pick up the history, any social revolution first requires the masses to ready the grounds, and then the reformer comes and does what he does. Those revolutions that have failed time and time again are those revolutions where the people were not ready. The reformer came and attempted to dictate to them how to be, and they revolted against him. Those revolutions that have been successful are individuals where the masses were ready and able and willing to accept that revolution of reform. The reformer came, introduced that revolution, and they were successful. The example I'll give you in history, very simple, is of the Ahl Medina and the Ahl Kufa. It's in front of us. As you know, when our Holy Prophet introduced Islam in Mecca, there were two tribes in Medina, or Yathrib as they were known before the migration. The tribes were Aus and Khazraj. These were individuals or tribes that hated each other. They would go to war for no apparent reason. They would shed each other's blood very easily. When finally the heads of one tribe, after the announcement of Islam, comes to Mecca, and says, look, apparently there's this guy named Muhammad who's introduced Islam. I want to meet him. Ends up meeting our Prophet of Allah and says, look, we are involved in this century-long war with this tribe. We're losing our loved ones. We're shedding each other's blood for no reason. We're tired of it. We want a solution. Our Prophet says, adopt Islam. That's your solution. Become Muslim and be good to go. He goes back to his tribes, introduces the idea. The Prophet of Allah sent someone called Mus'ab ibn Amir with the tribe as the ambassador of Islam. That itself is a whole discussion, by the way. As youth, as young people, you guys should realize how much importance our Holy Prophet gave young individuals. He gave them some of the most important tasks in terms of the development of the deen, such that the older ashab, the older individuals would complain to the Holy Prophet, saying, why would you ask these kids to do these important tasks when we are here in front of you? One of them is this Mus'ab ibn Amir. He was 18 years old. The Prophet sent him to go represent him inside Medina, convert the tribes of Khazraj and Aus to Islam, lead the first Jamaat prayer in Medina, all before the migration happened, before the Prophet even arrived, led the first Jamaat, and then sent a letter to our Holy Prophet that these guys are ready for you now. Because the Aus tribe says, we're ready for you, we want you to leave Mecca and come to Medina. Establish the government here. These Meccans don't appreciate you, they're ignorant, they're jahil, forget these guys. Come to Medina and we'll go from there. The Prophet waited until an 18-year-old gave him the green light. And the famous migration from Mecca to Medina that our calendar is based on was approved by an 18-year-old. And the Prophet simply said, okay, Mus'ab says green light it is. He made that famous migration, established a government in Medina, and they were ready for themselves. The ingredient that existed in the people of Medina that allowed them to host the Islamic government was reform and change. They changed their ignorant ways. They completely flipped their whole lifestyle on its head, adopted Islam. Now, of course, there were hypocrites in there. There were actually mu'mineen in there, no problem. That's one call. The second call in history is that of the Ahl Kufa, 25,000 letters. You guys have heard the history time and time again. 25,000 letters written to Imam Hussein saying, please come and lead us. We don't accept Yazid as a Khalifa. Prophet Muhammad said Mus'ab, Imam Hussein said Muslim. To go see what's going on there, see if they're actually legit, if they're actually true to their word. He arrived in Kufa, Muslim did, 25,000 people came, gave their bay'at, placed their hand in his hand, said Labbaik Ya Hussein, everything was good to go, wrote a letter just like Mus'ab did, Imam Hussein, come and lead the people of Kufa. And you guys know that the moment things got a little bit hairy and scary, they left Muslim high and dry. Two calls for guidance. One with the Ahl Medina, one with the Ahl Kufa. The results are different. One hosted the Holy Prophet, and one right now, certain individuals say the Kufis are responsible for the beheading of Imam Hussein. We equally have a call as well. We say, وَعَجِّلْ فَرَجَهُمْ. May Allah hasten that reappearance. One group changed themselves completely, one group didn't change themselves. Our question today is our call of وَعَجِّلْ فَرَجَهُمْ the call from Medina or the call from Kufa? Because right now, to be a Shia in this world means that there's a big target on your chest. There's genocide happening all over the world, and you guys are fully aware of that. So there's work to be done to establish the grounds for the arrival of our Imam. There's lots of work to be done. To give you some idea, just a small glimpse of what the companions of Imam al-Zamana will look like. We read every single Thursday in Zarat al-Waratha that the ashab of Imam Hussein were not like any other ashab out there. The Prophet of Allah didn't have the ashab that he did. Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't have the ashab that he did. Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba didn't have the ashab that Imam Hussein did. Astaana-e-Zehra didn't have the ashab that Imam Hussein did. No other Imam, companion, leader, revolutionary figure had the companions Imam Hussein did. Allama Tabarisi is an individual who wrote Tafsir Majmul Bayan. In that tafsir, he has a waqiyah that he narrates, an event that he narrates, in the last jild, the last volume of his tafsir. He writes that I read about the fact that Hussein had companions like no other. And for a moment I had a little bit of doubt inside of my mind. But how is that possible? Come on now. But the Prophet of Allah didn't have the companions Imam Hussein didn't have. That Ali and all his wisdom didn't have the Ashab Imam Hussein had. And with a little bit of doubt and shak, Allama Tabarsi went to sleep that night. That night in his dream, he's standing there on the day of Ashura, on the sands of Karbala. In front of him is Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein says to him, Tabarsi, I have a role for you. We're about to start Salat. I want you to stand in front of the Salat, and I want you to take the arrows that the enemies will launch my way. And ensure that me and those who are praying behind me do not get injured. Allama Tabarsi got very happy. He said that Imam Hussein had a role for me. I had a job to do. He actually saw me worthy enough to do something in his mission. I stood there right in front of the Jamaat, just like Imam Hussein told me to do. He began his takbir, Allahu Akbar. The first arrow came. It came right to the bridge of my nose, and I ducked. And the arrow struck Imam Hussein in the chest. He woke up in a panic, Tabarsi, upset, crying, sweating, couldn't believe it. Imam Hussein had a mission for him, and he let him down. Upset the entire day. That same night, the same dream happened. Same Ashura, same Imam Hussein, same mission, same arrow. He ducked again for a second time. Hit Imam Hussein again. The third night that this dream happened, he's standing there in front of Imam Hussein, and he's telling Imam Hussein, or Imam says, telling Tabarsi, that how dare you have the audacity to doubt the adamat of my companions. The greatness of my companions. It was Zuhair ibn Qayn who took 22 different arrows for Imam Hussein. From the moment he said Allahu Akbar to the moment he said Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, 22 different arrows, one by one. To the point when he fell and Imam Hussein caught him, he apologized to Imam Hussein, saying, I'm sorry, Mullah, if I had a little bit more John left, I'd give you even more of myself. The point that Tabarsi was making was that as great as those ashab were, the only comparable ashab that we have in our books are those of Imam Zamana, which inshallah you and I are shooting for. Now, I'll get to my topic eventually. Now, the question is, and this is where sometimes we place traps, and then we fall into the traps that we lay for ourselves, right? It's like Wile E. Coyote, right? Chasing the roadrunner. He gets hit by the anvil that he sets up for roadrunner, right? That's what we do. Set up traps, it's a good trap. As we're walking, we fall into that trap ourselves. That's what we do. One trap that we fall into ourselves is that we keep hearing about this magical number, right? The 313, right? There's movies made about it, there's t-shirts printed, Facebook pages, 313, 313. And we think to ourselves that decades and generations have passed, great ulama have passed, and they haven't been included in the 313. So how can you and I be included amongst those ashab of Imam Zamana? So we tell ourselves that there's no way I'll get to that stage. And once we've convinced ourselves that we won't get to that stage, we completely become complacent towards the deen. We convince ourselves that, look, I come to Astana whenever there's a Muharram program, I have my family, we do salat at home, my kids go to Sunday school, I come to the shahadats and waladats, I go out with my friends, I go out with my family, I have a nice little comfortable life of Islam, and I'm okay with that. This idea of progressing forward in my Islamic life doesn't exist. And that's a different topic altogether. And this trap that we place in front of ourselves is a trap and a cop-out, if you ask me, to lift the burden from our shoulders, to prepare ourselves first for the arrival of our Imam. I'm generalizing. Maybe, hopefully, inshallah, there are many of you out there right now who are constantly progressing forward day by day. But people like me who are complacent, who are lazy, who don't want to do anything at all, we are individuals who simply have convinced ourselves that, look, man, there's no way, bro, I'm getting that 313. When he comes, inshallah, we'll deal with it when he comes. What we don't understand is that the 313 is not just his army. Imam Zamana's mission will be a global mission. The Prophet of Allah's mission was around the peninsula only. It was limited to Mecca, Medina, and surrounding areas. Imam Zamana's mission is going to be global. he requires a lot more people than 300 some odd people to run his mission. Yes, those 313 in our riwayat say that they are the khas commanders of Imam Zamana, but the army and individuals needed to actually execute this government will be in the thousands. That's where you and I come in. And I don't know about anybody in this room, and I've said this in Beit al-Qaim many times, I'll say it here. All I'm after, me personally, all I'm after, is to show the Imam that, you know what, Asad, I can use you in my government. All I wanted to say is that, you know what, see this guy right here, this commander, this 6'4" guy who has good hair, this guy, I'll leave you alone, He is a commander of mine. He's a soldier of mine. He will break the enemy's back. He's living in those quarters over there. Your job, Asad, is to make sure that his bed is made every single day. Your job is to make sure that his bathroom is clean every single day. So when he's done doing his job in the battlefield, he'll come home to a nice clean bathroom and a nice clean bed. If I can get that role in Imam Zamana's army, I'm down. I'm done. If I convince Imam, look, Imam, you know what? I'm a good cleaner. I make a really mean cheese omelet, and I do. I make a sick cheese omelet. I can make that cheese omelet for your soldiers. Every single breakfast will be a nice hot cheese omelet. Just let me be a part of your mission in somehow, some form. So when people walk around the streets during those days and they see Asad Jafri, see this guy? He's part of the Imam's army. He's the cook inside their kitchen. That's all I want. I'm not after 313. I don't want to hold a gun. I don't want to do all that kind of stuff. That's not me, whatever. I just want to have some nisbat to the Imam. Some connection to the Imam. Do something, anything in your life, in your world today, where the Imam will take notice, do a double take, say, wait a second, I can use that in my army. Whatever it is. Be it in your professional world, if you're a doctor, lawyer, accountant, professional, businessman, whatever the case may be, you do it so well that the Imam can say, you know what, you can fix and be my first aid doctor for my soldiers, let's say, for example. That's what we need to shoot for. And let's remove the traps and let's start to work towards that, inshallah. Now, one of the areas that is difficult for us is that we live in this part of the world. Being somebody who's been raised in Toronto, I'm with you. I went to school in Toronto. I worked in corporate IBM for many, many years in Toronto. I didn't go to the house until I was very late in my life. I was almost 30 years old. So I've been through a lot of what you guys are going through. What you guys will go through, I've already been through. I'm not talking about myself. I'm saying that I can feel your pain. I have empathy for all of you. The struggles that you guys are going through right now is immense, man. It's not easy to live in this part of the world, somehow maintain your deen and still be part of this dunya as well. Anyone who claims to say it's easy, they haven't walked the path that you guys walk. That was the attempt I was trying to make last night to show all of you, is that look at struggles a little bit differently. Now, one problem that we have in this world will paint a picture, or this society will paint a picture of instant gratification. Everything today is on your fingertips. Everything is instant, right? If you don't reply to someone's text, do you get my text? Yeah, you didn't reply. Did you get my email? You didn't reply. Everything has to be done within 3.2 seconds in this world. If it's not, there's a problem. Even when it comes to gratifying our own internal desires, it has to be instant at that moment. And that's where this society is moving towards. This idea of delayed gratification or deferred gratification is not something the West preaches. And that's where you and I fall into this trap. Islam talks about this idea that, look, invest. The return on your investment you'll see in the akhirat. Yes, you'll see certain things in this world. You'll see many things in the hereafter. Society will say, no, the turnaround has to happen immediately. We live in one society. We attempt to live our own personal life in a different society. It's a battle. It's difficult, not easy. Not supposed to be easy, by the way. It's supposed to be difficult. Now, let me read something for you. I'm not used to reading things during discussions, but there was a very famous experiment done. I'm sure you guys have seen this. It's called If Earth Was a Village. You seen this? No? Sisters? No? Okay. If Earth Was a Village. Okay. Now, this was done in the 60s. It was done again by a prof in Stanford. Okay, recite salawat fi Muhammad wa alihi. It's very, very interesting. I want you to understand right now the situation of the world today. You guys all with me, inshallah? Sisters, you good? Alhamdulillah. Good. If Earth Was a Village by Dr. Philip Harder of Stanford University. He says if the Earth population was shrunk into a village of just 100 people, with all of the human ratios existing in the world still remaining, what would this tiny village look like? Okay, 7 billion people, a village of 100 people, heading on to the ratios that exist today, what would that village look like? It's a very interesting experiment. Look at these numbers. Of the 100 people, 57 would be Asian. 21 would be European. 14 would be from the West. 8 would be African. 52 females, 48 males. That's right. 70 would be non-white. 30 would be white. Yeah, buddy. 70 would be non-Christian. 30 would be Christian. Swallow this one for a while. 6 people of the 100 in the village would possess 69% of the village's resources. All 6 of them, U.S. citizens. No, U.S. citizens. 80 of the 100 will live in substandard housing. 70 of them would not be able to read. 50 of them would suffer from malnutrition. 1 would be near death, 1 would be pregnant, 1 of the 100 would have a college education, and 1 would own a computer. That's the village. These numbers scream injustice. It's not what God had in store for us. It wasn't part of God's plans. We take these numbers and we compare it to traditions we have when the Imam will come, establish his government. There'll be people who will look to give sadaqah to the poor and will not be able to find one poor individual. They'll search far and wide, they can't find one person. To the point where they'll put it on the curb and say, whoever thinks they're needy, please come and take my sadaqah from me. They won't find one person. That society that the Imam is looking to build and this society are 2 different extremes. Where do we live now and where is the Imam coming in terms of the establishment? We are far, far apart from that. We need to work at bridging this distance. Because there's a reason why there has been constant mention in our traditions about the fact that Imam Moulana will not come and establish Islam, but rather establish justice. Right? If I was to tell you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that every single problem that we have in the world today, every single problem, and it's a big statement, I know, every problem that we have in the world today is one problem we have. And the solution is one. You may not accept that statement. You may tell me that, look, Syed, the Middle East has their issues, Europe has their issues, we in the West have our issues. The reality is that right now, the way that the world is forming, every single individual, be it the Arab awakening in the Middle East, be it the protests in Europe, be it the Occupy protests here in North America, all of them scream for social justice. Agreed? Every them. The 1%, the 99%, it's not about Wall Street, it's about social justice. The awakening that started in Egypt from one fruit stand guy who was denied the right to sell apples and pears in the streets of Egypt, set himself on fire because he was denied the right to have an income. That sparked awakening across the Middle East. Everything today screams about one thing: the lack of social justice. And while people don't understand where the solution might come from, you and I do. He's in Ghaibat, right? He'll come and he'll establish that social justice. That's why you see these revolutions in Egypt. They're trying, not working. You know, they vote in the Ikhwan are gone, now they bring in somebody else, the military, and now it's chaos. And all over the place. Because they haven't truly understood that, yes, while we've understood the idea of fighting dhulm and injustice, we haven't quite understood the solution to that is the Imam who is in Ghaibat right now. But you and I have, alhamdulillah, we have that tawfiq, alhamdulillah. We need to work at it. Part of that is the idea of living a life where we understand deferred gratification is always preferred over instant gratification. They did a marshmallow experiment. Have you guys seen this? Yeah? Have you? Okay. It's quite humorous. It's on YouTube, actually. So is the If Earth Was a Village. You can search for it. Don't do it now. Do it when you go home, inshallah. The marshmallow experiment is this. They put a bunch of 4 or 5-year-olds in a room. They placed in front of them a plate and 1 marshmallow in front of them. And they said that you have 2 choices. You can have this marshmallow now and enjoy it, or I'll be back in 15 minutes, and if I see the 1 marshmallow still there, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. 4 or 5-year-olds. And the person leaves the room. The reports say that there were individuals who within 3 seconds devoured that marshmallow. There were other individuals who physically were fighting themselves to not eat the marshmallow. Some would close their eyes. Some would turn their back against the marshmallow. Some would hide under the table where the marshmallow was one. Some would pick up the marshmallow and stroke it like it was an animal or something. Okay? Some would pull their hair, their little pigtails. Some would rock back and forth. Anything and everything to do with the fact that I don't want to eat this marshmallow because I know there's another one coming. They say 2/3 of the children deferred and were able to eat 2 marshmallows. The 1/3 of them couldn't handle the 15 minutes. The experiment says that we followed these 4-year-olds until they were 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And we find that those individuals who deferred the gratification of the marshmallow, to have 2 of them, were individuals who were more patient, had more resolve, had more willpower, had more self-recognition, were able to go through less divorces. They were successful in their business, higher SAT scores. All these things were there because they were able to train themselves to defer their gratification. Now, the challenge lies in the fact that we were created to be haste individuals. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانَ عَجُولًا خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَجَلٍ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ كَانَ عَجُولًا. Man was created to be a haste individual. To fight that is our challenge. At this young age, it's a challenge. What is that challenge? Very simple. We go through 2 births in our life. We are born twice. One birth is that birth where we, of course, are born from our mother, and one birth comes later on in our life. The birth from our mother comes with the fact that we have 2 main faculties inside of our soul that is apparent inside every single child. Attraction and repulsion. Ghadab and shahwa. And you see this, you ask a 3-year-old, when they want something, they want something. You convince them logically, they won't have it. When they don't want something, they really don't want something. They'll kick, they'll scream, they'll throw a tantrum, they don't want to eat that, they don't want to sleep at that moment. You'll take them to the toy store, they'll pick out the toy that they have in their house already. You tell me you already have this toy. They'll say, no, I want this toy. It's the exact same toy at home. All they know is what they want and what they don't want. Their desire and their repulsion. Okay, so far so good? You guys with me? Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. This goes on and goes on and goes on until the sister reaches 9 years old and the brother reaches 15 years old. And comes the second birth, the birth of the intellect. Now you're baligh, you're baligha, and you are responsible as a human being for your decisions. Now, the faculties of desire and anger are with you from day number one, and so is your aql, of course. I'm not saying that before 15 you're completely, unreasonable, but it's not mature yet. At 15, at 9, your intellect becomes mature, and now joins the party with your ghazab and your shahwa, with your anger and your desire. And now all of a sudden you are a mature adult. It's funny how Islam sees you at the age of 9, sisters, to be a mature adult, responsible for your actions. And we see ourselves, society sees ourselves, our parents see ourselves as a small child who doesn't know what they're talking about. Right? And boys at 15, 14, the exact same thing. Interesting how that happens. It's also interesting, let me put this in brackets too, since I'm here. My wife, I remember, in the second or third year we were in the house in Iran, she got invited to a jashan. And the jashan was called Jashan-e-Taklif. Okay? Now, taklif in Urdu means one thing, in Farsi means another. In Urdu, it means pain. In Farsi, it means that you have become a mukallif. You are now responsible. So the jashan was the jashan of someone who is responsible. What does that mean? She went to a jashan when a girl turned 9 years old. The mother of that daughter held a jashan in her house. We've never heard of that before. It doesn't happen here in the West, of course. At least not in Toronto. I'm not sure what happens in Astaana in New Jersey, but at least not in Toronto. And when she came back, she was amazed. My wife said that the speaker at that jashan related a story of Sheikh Baha'i. Sheikh Baha'i was a very big sheikh, and still is a big sheikh in our Islamic world. He would mark on his calendar the day he became baligh. And would celebrate that day, not his birthday, celebrate that day. Why? He says, that was the day where Allah deemed me worthy enough to follow His Sharia. Allahu Akbar. And that pride that I have, that my Creator now has seen me worthy enough to pray salat and keep fast and give khums and go for hajj and earn His pleasure, is a day I celebrate every single year. Incredible. Incredible outlook on that. Khair. We become baligh, and now the intellect and the aql joins the group. Now, what should be happening at the age of 15 and 9, what should be happening, is that the intellect comes in and says, guys, look, you guys have been with this guy since day number 1. I'm now here. I'm going to run things. Not things. I'm going to run things. And I'm going to lead the entire group. So if you have shahwa, if you have anger, if you want something, if you don't like something, you got to come to me, knock on my door, ask me for permission. I'll tell you, yes, you're allowed to like this thing, you're allowed to not like this thing. Okay? That's what should be happening. The reality is, it's not happening. Our desires get bigger and bigger and bigger because we keep feeding this monster inside of us. Every time the desire says jump, we say yes sir, and we keep jumping up and down like buffoons. And our desire gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we wonder why our desire just isn't getting full. The more we feed it, the bigger it gets. And our intellect, bachara, is somewhere in the corner saying, guys, remember me? Remember me? I'm the intellect. I'm the guy that's supposed to, tell you what you should be liking, what you shouldn't be liking. He's been trampled and pushed to the corner. Because the desire goes, dude, you just arrived. I've been here since for past 15 years. You're a rookie, man. I'm a 15-year veteran. You don't tell me what to do. Right? I get all the playing minutes. You get 20 minutes a game, I get 48 minutes a game. That's how it goes in sports, right? Same idea. You can't come in as a rookie and tell me, okay, vet, you sit on the bench, I'll take your role. No, you won't. I've been here, this is my playground, this is my hood, you can't come here and tell me what to do. Go off. Okay? And this battle begins at 15 and 9. And it's a serious battle, man. Oh my goodness. Several times a day, this battle ensues. And the very, very special youth are those who weaken their desires and who strengthen their intellect. And the very, very special ones are the ones who actually allow their aql and their intellect and their reasoning to govern their desires and their anger and their creativity. And to do that surrounded in this society is even more difficult. But it's possible. That's why the ulama of akhlaq tell us that one of the areas that you can certainly gain this idea of deferred gratification is to weaken your desires. You don't always need to say yes to your desires, guys. If your desire is saying, look, I want this, I want to eat this food, I want to buy this purse, I want to buy these shoes, I want to love this person, I want to marry this person, and all of that is bad news for you, God forbid we say, no, you know what? I don't want that to happen. But this society will tell you to make your nafs your God. Whatever your nafs says, you do it. No one has any right to tell you that you can't love this person. You can't marry this person. Your parents are begging you, your community is begging you, the alim is begging you, look man, she's bad news for you bro, don't marry her. Right? Don't get fooled by his blue eyes. His blue eyes will become gray in 1 second or become black in 1 second. Look at his taqwa and piety. Not his hair, no, I'm not going to mention his hair. That's what's going on right now. Until we get this thing, desire, which is out of control. And when that happens, when desire is out of control, we become habitual sinners. The same sin we do over and over and over again, to the point, can you imagine, to the point where we're doing the sin in the middle of the sin, we're telling ourselves, we shouldn't be doing this. And we do it. Right till the end. And afterwards, we kick ourselves, we bang ourselves, we slap ourselves. What's wrong with you? You shouldn't be doing this. We beg Allah, astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu. That's it, I'm done. Wallahi, 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 I'm done. No more God, no more God. You wake up in the morning, and bam, that sin happens again. And you kill yourself again. Because your desire is out of control. You no longer control your desires. It's like walking up the mountain and the donkey is on your back and you're going up the mountain and someone's like, yo man, the donkey was made to carry you up the mountain, not the other way around. You have this load of desires on your shoulders, you're walking around, you're trying to get on the right path and this desire gets heavier and heavier, whipping you saying, go faster, master, go faster, slave, go faster. You're like, yes, master, you go, and you go, and you go. And the uncle's like, yo man, you had me on your side, you didn't. It's a very dangerous level when you get to that point where you know what you're doing is wrong. It's one thing where you're ignorant, right? It's one thing where you're like, you know what, I really enjoy that. I remember one guy in one community, not here, don't worry, somewhere else. I'll talk about you guys until I leave the community, then I can talk about you guys. There's a discussion I was happening at my host house actually yesterday with the people there in the house. I was saying that Amir al-Mu'mineen used to describe the Prophet of Allah as a roaming physician in Nahj al-Balagha. And nowadays, the doctor stays in the office, you make the appointment. When you are sick and you have the symptoms and you have now told yourself, okay, I need to go see a doctor, you go see a doctor. Doctor, you know what, I'm sick, here's a prescription, go on your way. The doctor waits for you to figure things out that, yeah, you're sick, you need a doctor. The Prophet of Allah wasn't like that. The Prophet of Allah saw symptoms in other individuals that were sick and would go to them and attempt to cure them. We're trying to do that in Toronto. We see certain individuals who in between the majlis get up, go to the parking lot, smoke a joint, get high, come back in the center, high as a kite. And they have their parents fooled. And they approach me to say, salam, great speech, and this guy is glazed. His eyes are, and he thinks I have no idea what someone high looks like. This is happening over and over and over again, until one day, finally, I approached this brother. I go, I need to talk to you Friday night at this time in the center. And he knew exactly what I wanted from him. I brought him down to the basement of my center, and don't worry, I didn't beat him up, don't worry. No, nothing like that. And I talked to him. You know what he said? You know what he said? He told me, he goes, look, yeah, I do all this stuff. And he asked me, he goes, Syed, have you ever been high? I said, no, I haven't. And legit, I haven't. I've never been high. Even though my mayor might smoke crack, I don't smoke crack. But still, he goes, it's a beautiful thing. He goes, food tastes better, flowers smell better, everything just seems very, very rosy. And I'm not promoting this stuff, by the way. It's one thing where he legitimately, benefits and likes the sin that he's committing, or the mistake that he's making. That's one problem. It's one problem where you're not even enjoying the sin anymore, you're still doing it. You're killing yourself during that sin. You can't stop yourself. That's a whole different level. That's a very dangerous level. That's when that's so ingrained inside you, it becomes part of your essence. You're known for that sin. And that happens when you feed this beast called a desire inside of you over and over and over again. We convince ourselves, look, I'm young, I'm 15, I'm 18, I'm 21, I'm 24. I should be like this. Everyone else is like that. When I'm 40, when I'm 50, when I'm 60, I'll repent to God, I'll go to Hajj, a couple of Hajjs, I'll be good to go. By then, you're dead inside, you're destroyed. Because this society will preach to you, you want it, go get it now. This idea of doing the act now and your reward will come later on, sorry man, it doesn't cut it for me. This is the West, man, everything happens instantly. Real time. And that's the fight that we're at. We are in that fight. In this fight to ensure that our desires are not to the point where it overtakes us. Now, there are several reasons why this happens. Why is it that we are, and ask yourself, it's a very tough question, by the way, a very tough question. Am I a habitual sinner? Do I do the same sin over and over and over again? If I do, then what's my solution? Number one, the solution is difficult to handle. Usually what ends up happening is this. We have either gone through a tough tragedy in our life, a tough calamity, a tough problem, a hardship. Either if you are a little bit older in your age, you've gone through an ugly divorce, let's say, for example. Or, who knows, maybe you were raised in a house where you are one of 4 siblings and you are the one who would always get forgotten. Right? The older one is the king, the younger one is the prince, the only daughter is the princess, and you're stuck in the middle. Or let's say, as a kid growing up, you're a little bit overweight, you're the fat kid in school, never picked up for sports teams, so you have this idea of, extreme image issues. You were bullied in school, let's say. And that stuff resonates, right? It sticks with you. So you have these gaping holes inside of you from when you were a child. And you bring that up when you were 18, 19, 20, 21. So what do? We go out there, we try to plug these holes inside of us by experimenting different things. I never got the attention when I was 8 years old. Now that I'm 18, I'm part of this group that gets high on Fridays, gets drunk on Saturdays, that goes and does this, womanizing, etc., etc. And I want to make sure that I compensate for the fact that I wasn't able to be the cool guy in that age to do so now. And we do that and we try to plug that hole inside of us. And that hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And meanwhile, we dive into a lower and lower and lower world. We attempt to cover those holes inside of us with the wrong things, the wrong plugs. So the first thing the ulama tell us about this idea is to ensure that you go through a serious self-examination process. Is it the case that I am a habitual sinner? Is it the case that I have this idea where, yes, I want everything now at this moment? Because sometimes the Quran talks about this idea that you might love a thing, but it's horrible for you. You might hate a thing, it's great for you. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرُهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Very simple, very beautiful verse. That it could be that you hate an existence, وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ, it's good for you. Or it could be that you love something, وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ, it's evil for you. Allah knows, وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ, Allah knows. You, we don't know. وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. The point I'm trying to make is that sometimes there is hikmat and there is wisdom behind certain rulings in Islam. Right now, the ego of the youth is killing the youth. I'm sorry, I include myself in that group. We want to be convinced that why is hijab wajib, and once I'm convinced, then I'll start wearing hijab. I want to be convinced why I have to grow a beard and start praying salat and giving my khums money. I worked hard for this money, man. You want 20% of it? You out of your mind? 20% of my earnings? Forget it. Until I'm convinced, it's not going to happen. I've had discussions till 3 o'clock in the morning, right? My lips are dry, my throat is dry, everything. One dalil after one proof after one from the Quran, from the aql, from the hadith. After all that, like, I'm not convinced. That's ego, man. It's going to kill you guys. Moulana Ali says what? Al-Islam huwa al-taslim, wal-taslim huwa al-yaqeen. Islam is submission. Submission is certainty. You follow that? Submit first. In that submission, you'll find certainty. That you today want to be certain, and then I'll submit. No. Moulana says that you submit first, and then watch the doors of yaqeen start to open up for you. And that's happened before. Sometimes certainty is in that amal, in that act. So yes, there is an element of doing something for the sake of doing it. Absolutely. If not for any other reason, but because Allah has made that an obligation, you say fine. I say La ilaha illallah, Allah, you are the ma'bud, you are the ultimate creator and the individual who I should worship. Whatever you say is for my betterment. So based on that, I'll follow. Whether or not my limited understanding understands the reasoning behind it or not, is not a prerequisite to follow the Sharia. If Allah has given you tawfiq to understand why you're doing it, alhamdulillah, fantastic. There's lizzat then in that act. That's not a prereq though, guys, for you guys to understand, be convinced. Okay, fine, you convinced me, tomorrow I'm going to start doing this. Who are you, with all due respect, to play with God's infinite wisdom? Amir al-Mu'mineen describes us, he describes us as individuals who came from a najis fluid, end up being powdered bones in the grave, and in between we are a vessel of feces. Allah. We empty that vessel, we fill it up. We empty it, we fill it. That's all we are. And through all of that, we're like, yeah, convince me of God's kingdom. Then I'll follow it. Then I'll think about following it. As if God's kingdom is dependent on you. Sorry guys, I don't mean to, but sometimes we need to kind of come down one level and realize that we, alhamdulillah, have been individuals who understand not only that Allah is existent, the Prophet is existent, but this idea of the Ahlul Bayt are the chosen few that guide us, that should bring about a sense of humility inside of us. If it is, great. If not, we have to check ourselves to find out what's happening. Why isn't it that there are things? And we place, like I said, prisons inside of us. What we don't understand sometimes is that we are the inmate and we are the prison keeper as well, the security guard. We have the keys to that and we're also stuck in that prison. And we cry to ourselves, oh my God, I'm in prison. I would love to do this, but I'm in the West. I would love to, but I'm doing this. All these buts that we have at the end of everything that's good, those are prisons that we create for ourselves. We live in that prison, we're stuck in that prison, we have the keys hooked to our belt of those prisons. All you have to do is open the gate and walk out, man. Break those prisons. Begin to delve and drown yourself into Islam and watch avenues open up. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ, the Quran says. That those who have piety, Allah will create a makhraja for you, an outlet, a solution for you. And give you risk from a source La yahtasib, that you never even did accountability of. You never thought this door existed. One door closes, you cry, the door's closed. The door that you never even thought was there to begin with opens, you walk through, salvation. try it. Try it. If you are somebody who's on the fence between deen and dunya, if you're somebody who's been teetering and tottering, like many of us are, figuring out, you know what, do I really want to, drown myself in this lifestyle or not? I ask you, for a week, try it. See what happens. The solution to your problems are there in front of you. Because Allah's system is based on a deferred gratification system. Those of us who are in haste, who are in a hurry, who always want something that's always instant, that's the arena of shaitan. Shaitan works like that. Right? And shaitan will always pump that inside of you. That, look, man, you can have this right now. Have it right now. Tomorrow will never come. You never know if tomorrow will come or not. And those thoughts are satanic thoughts inside of us. So I ask you, we'll wrap up now, a little bit long-winded, sorry. I'll ask you, and ask myself, inshallah, to first of all understand that, yes, there are certain things that we have in this world where you'll have the ajr and the reward for it right away. For example, many of you have heard this, that sila raham, to be good with your family, has immense reward in this world. One hadith, and then we'll open the floor for questions. One hadith, to understand that sometimes you do have reward in this world, but many times the reward will come in hereafter. If in your books is written that you have 3 years left to live, and you do sila rahim with your family, meaning you have good ties with your blood relations, then that 3 years will become 33 years in that book. If the opposite happens, if you have 33 years left to live and you do qat'i rahim, God forbid, you cut off ties with your blood relations, the 33 years becomes 3 years of life. Right? So action, amal in this world, you'll see the reward in this world as well, but Allah's system is a deferred gratification system. Just like that marshmallow, if you just wait it out, you'll have 2 marshmallows. Same idea. Anything that this world has to offer is nothing compared to what that world will offer. Imam Ali says, the sweetness of this world is the sourness of the next, and the sourness of this world is the sweetness of the next. What a beautiful tradition that is. So I ask you, take on this challenge. It's difficult, it's not easy. Day by day, fight yourself, wrestle yourself. Understand that Allah sees exactly where you are, where you live, your circumstance. Everyone will be judged accordingly to their difficulty in front of them. Nobody will have a blanket judgment. Allah is just like that. Take on that challenge, inshallah. May Allah bless all of you. May Allah give you that tawfiq and inspiration to serve the deen, to become the future ambassadors, inshallah, to serve the Imam in his cause. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.